CDP is aligned now with the ISSB climate standard. How far will this help companies needing to comply with the CSRD, and how far aligned are ESRS and ISSB climate standards so far?
I don't know if Sue explained, but on May 2nd, both ISSB and EFRAG published a joint statement together with an interoperability mapping document, which is explaining exactly how it works. And let me state the conclusion, and then I will elaborate a little bit on the document itself. The conclusion is that someone reporting under the ESRS will comply with the ISSB disclosures on climate, subject to considering a limited number of points, which are points for attention. So there are some nuances, but all in all, double reporting is not needed. So this document, which was published on May 2nd, and which also was commented in a joint meeting that we organized on May 23rd here in Brussels, together with Emmanuel Faber and Sue Lloyd, and together with the Deputy Director General of FISMA, Alexandra Jour-Schroeder. This document has 4 sections. Section 1 is the alignment of principles, in particular regarding materiality, but also presentation, and beyond climate. So I leave that aside, but I just want to clarify that when you take the double materiality approach, which is the approach adopted by the European Union, you have into it the investor focus. So no big deal here. If you do the double materiality, you introduce the element of investor focus clearly. Then section 2 is highlighting the very high level of commonality reached following long discussions between ISSB and EFRAG and together with the Commission to make sure that we would avoid, to the maximum extent possible, differences. So I would say that you have a big part of the disclosure that are in common. Then section 3 says what is needed for an ESRS reporter to go to ISSB. And as I mentioned, in fact, it's relatively little. It's nuances you have to consider to make sure that you are not, when you report under ESRS, you are taking into account the nuances that sometimes are needed to be ISSB compliant. And you have a couple of additions like financed emissions, because financed emissions for ESRS will be developed under the sector-specific standards and were not considered in the first set of standards. But no problem here, that can be added. And then section 4 is the other way around. What does an ISSB reporter need to do to be ESRS compliant? And here you have also nuances, some points to consider, and yes, you have some additional disclosures which are related to the broader scope that is adopted under the ESRS. But let me state that way, an ESRS reporter is aligned with, compatible with, you call it the way you want, with the ISSB disclosure. So no discrepancy here.
That sounds very good. Pietro, from the view of the CDP's new questionnaire, how are you supporting harmonization and how are you making it easier and more efficient for companies?
Yeah, first of all, let me commend the great work that has been done by EFRAG and the EFRS, because indeed, the alignment of the interoperability of the standards is essential. What we do at CDP is offering tangible solutions to make that interoperability come to fruition. So indeed, having the one-stop shop will allow the companies to feed in their data, their disclosure once, so that they can be used for different purposes. And that's indeed, the idea of helping the companies to navigate a very complex reporting environment, which is, of course, depends on the jurisdictional approaches that the different jurisdictions will have. But indeed, companies are, as a matter of fact, operating on a global level. So they will need to look at different requirements and different expectations. But this will become too burdensome. And that's, how we come in, allowing that disclosure in once on our platform to be used for different compliance, for different use cases and different standards.
So like doing it once and using it many. Patrick, still we have a discussion about the cost to comply for companies subject to the CSRD. How is EFRAG supporting companies, especially through partnership with CDP?
So a little more than a year ago, we, in full agreement with the European Commission, we decided to reprioritize a little bit our activities by, modifying the deadlines for the issuance of sector-specific standards and putting the emphasis on implementation support. So this is now at least possibly 1/3 of our activities dedicated to implementation support. In doing so, we first of all issue implementation guidance, and we had 3 that are just released. One on how to perform your materiality assessment, which is a very critical element of sustainability reporting. It's pivotal, in fact. The second one is, of course, something that is pretty new for many, which is how to address the value chain aspects of your activities. And the third one is more practical. It is the full universe of data points that a preparer would have to consider when the gap analysis is performed, in order to make sure that between what you already have, what you need to have, following the materiality assessment, you're able to be as comprehensive as possible. With CDP, we have a memorandum of understanding that was signed, and we seriously hope that this is going to ease the burden for preparers. Because, I think I forgot to mention earlier that we also are working in the EU on a digital taxonomy. So, it is a translation in a digital format of the human readable disclosures. By the way, we took a relatively granular approach to narrative information, which is a very critical part of sustainability reporting, by contrast with financial reporting. So not only quantitative information, but also qualitative/narrative information. So, and we are working with the ISSB to make sure that we have bridges between the two. So, I think that with the little help of our friends, as the saying goes, we could potentially create the right bridges with under the CDP system as well, and that's what we declared as a goal in our memorandum of understanding.
That sounds very promising, but still we all have limited resources. Pietro, where's CDP already aligned with the European standards? Maybe you can go into some detail here.
Yeah, with pleasure. Because, we are the global market adoption partner for the ESRS, allowing companies that disclose through our platform to get on the path to compliance with the ESRS. So far already, we have quite some alignment between our disclosure and the ESRS. From our mapping, in fact, more than 1/3 of the questions in the CDP 2024 questionnaire is aligned with the ESRS. And when it comes to the climate standards under the ESRS, the E1, most of the data points are actually covered by by our disclosure, which is great because it spans as well more than climate, looking at forest, water biodiversity, and plastics. So for companies disclosing on the 2024 CDP questionnaire, for them it is already a good head start to be on the path to compliance with the ESRS. Of course, we do have the intentions as established in our MOU, in our Memorandum of Understanding, to further the collaboration and further the alignment. The principle that we apply is always the same. We want to make it easier for the companies. We want to ensure the interoperability of the standards and the idea that company write once so that it can be read many times.
Speaking about efficiency, Patrick, where do you anticipate that the European standards can be used by investors or other data users to help companies access capital and improve their business?
Well, first of all, let me go back to what Pietro was saying, because I totally agree with him. We absolutely need a two-way traffic. So, in order to make sure that information is accessible easily and possibly with one channel of posting, if I oversimplify. Now, ESRS have been designed to cover sustainability impacts, risks, and sustainability-related impacts, risks, and opportunities under a comprehensive coverage that covers environmental, social, and governance. Under that overall umbrella, we had a clear direction of travel when we elaborated, which was the features of which are the following. First of all, we wanted to make sure that the information that is required from financial institutions would be found in the disclosures prepared by the corporates in general. So the flow of information from corporates to financial institutions the bridge is created. So all, for instance, the SFDR information disclosures are embedded into the ESRS disclosures. So you can, from the upcoming data, you can fulfill, if you're a financial institution, you can fulfill your obligations, and you can also use it to, allocate your capital to the right elements. The other element, which was absolutely key for us, but that has already been mentioned, is, of course, interoperability with other global initiatives. ISSB, we mentioned this and explained already, but also GRI, Global Reporting Initiative, because we felt that an ESRS reporter should be considered as reporting with reference under GRI, almost, I would say, in as simple as possible a manner.
Patrick, one last question. We're here in the heart of Europe, but CDP has companies watching from across the globe. We saw some of them in the morning already. How many companies will EFRAG standards impact? And how will they help their sustainability action? Just one short last question.
You mean outside the EU?
Yes, globally.
Well, I do not have a precise number because there were estimates. I'm not sure, but since a non-EU company will have to report under a non-EU ESRS standard, if the activity of the group, so it will want to report at group level, if the activity of the group in the EU is over and above 150 million euro, I guess that a number of large non-EU companies will be in scope. So and by the way, when we are traveling outside the EU, I was in Asia mid-April, and then I went to Canada at the beginning of May. I see a significant interest on the development of sustainability information. And that's where we try also to create the interoperability, because, we don't want to complexify the life of non-EU reporters. If a non-EU reporter wants to work in the EU, they will have, under the so-called Article 40A of the CSRD, they will have to consider the non-EU, complying with the non-EU standard by 2028. So my recommendation is, of course, to anticipate to the maximum extent possible.
So a lot of work to do, but with your help, this is not gonna be so difficult. Pietro and Patrick, thank you very much. Some interesting takeaways here for companies as they prepare to comply with these incoming standards. Thank you so much.